eeuwige gebergtes, waar die kranse antwoord gee, oor ons ververlaate vlaktes, met die kreun van ons gevaar. Luis die stem van ons geliefdes, van ons land Suid-Afrika. Ons sal antwoord op jou roepstem, ons sal offer wat jy vraag. Ons sal ons vir jou Suid-Afrika.
What really sparked everything is that I used an Afrikaans swear word to describe the people, which was stupid. I shouldn't have done that. It was really stupid, but at that stage, it was really, I was feeling incredibly strong about it. So I made a mistake by using.
But you stick by the sentiment, though.
I absolutely stick by the sentiment. There's no ways I'll go back on that. But I did make a mistake by using a swear word.
Look, it's a shocking thing, the types of things that have been said about Elsabe and the threats and so on. And I think the point we'd like to make is that Steve Hofmeyr's right to sing the stem must be defended. Yeah. These are dangerous times for free speech. Talk of journalists being licensed, provocative cartoons, cartoonists being sued, the Spear saga, the same thing. So defend Hofmeyr's right to sing whatever he likes, where it doesn't border on incitement to violence, and his supporters to sing along with it.
Was this not his right for freedom of expression?
It was his right for freedom of expression. Quite rightly, Elsabe and many others then climbed into him and said, what message are you sending out into the world about Afrikaners, about modern Afrikaners, about reconciliation, all of that? Perfectly legitimate, the right thing to do. The problem comes with the reaction to people like Elsabe, and she's not in a unique position. If you talk to Afrikaner commentators who have gone out against the folk, who've been critical of dominant Afrikaner opinion, this is a common reaction. We don't know to what extent it is a majority reaction or to what extent it is a very small minority of people. But when I first started writing a column for Rapport, the Afrikaans Sunday newspaper, I began to experience this, and I put it to the then editor, Tim Du Plessis. What is this? Who are these people? And they said they're not sure, but there is such a movement. And if you speak to some of the more liberal Afrikaner newspaper editors, they'll tell you stories that border on this. This is a particularly extreme case. But I've seen the threats of violence, threats against the family and so on, for saying this sort of thing. It is a very dangerous thing and a very worrying thing, and as great a threat to freedom of speech and expression as any move to silence or Hofmeyr or so on would be.
No, I'm not afraid. You know, very many years ago, in fact, when I was a matric, my parents moved to the border and lived in a war situation. And I had to make up my mind then whether I'm going to live in fear or not. I decided not to live in fear. And I have ever since. When there were about 200 comments, I saw last night there's 1,200 now. There was about 63,000 hits on the page. So no, I'm not living in fear at all. What I can say is that if there's any fear in me, then it would be for my children. I have 5 children that I care for financially. 4 of them are permanently in my foster care. And there's been some vile things said about them, and I have been accused of receiving state money, which the children never see.
What we do have is economic data on the Afrikaner. And what that shows, contrary to all opinion, and this really brings out that reaction, is that Afrikaners have done well on the whole economically after 1994. They might have been driven out of large corporations and out of the state, but they've become entrepreneurs. Their living standards, their incomes have increased. Unemployment rates for white South Africans, would include Afrikaners, in South Africa today, after 20 years of empowerment policy, are lower than unemployment rates in North America and Western Europe. So I don't think there is the rise of the Afrikaner poor, but it is a very small minority of people. what you do see, and certainly it's starting to change, is a lack of Afrikaner political leadership. Who leads the Afrikaners? And they are. We were
in the context of the bigger South Africa.
In the bigger, where is that leadership? The solidarity movement in AfriForum is starting to step in there. I think someone like Steve Hofmeyr has the potential to play a very positive role there. Yeah. But this mad, hateful stuff that's directed
and we've
at
seen
people
the
like
language.
Elsabe,
I mean, we've seen the language. It's quite offensive.
Is a reflection that there's no sensible, pragmatic Afrikaner core that's taking this group of people and saying to them, we've got to be part of a positive future for South Africa.
It's a beautiful poem that was written by Langenhoven.
So what was the problem with the way or how Steve Hofmeyr actually used it?
You know, a lot of the people, the comments that were sent to me, a lot of them said, so you say it's right that our president sings Mshimiwam and that Malema sings Kilabur. No, I am not saying that. I am most certainly not saying that. But I feel by singing the stem, you're doing exactly the same. It's the wrong sentiment that is being brought up. And our president and Malema, all of them also claimed it's part of their culture. So we are claiming it's part of our culture and we're saying we're not allowed to sing. No, it's not that. It's the way that it's used.
Now, how does this incident actually make you feel about the Afrikaner community? I mean, let's also be fair that the comments you've received are not a reflection of the entire community. It's certain individuals within the community as well.
You have to also take in consideration that I have also received an enormous amount of support from people that I respect. I truly do not have a lot of respect for those people that wrote those things and have threatened to kill me and do my children harm and. So I truly don't have respect there, but there's an enormous amount of support from my family. My 86-year-old mother that said to me last night, jy het nou 'n klip in die bos gegooi. And then she said, no, you didn't. Dis 'n rots wat jy ingegooi het. And I said, well, you know, Mom, that is the way that you, as a very old Afrikaner generation, you brought me up to stand up for what I believe in. And you brought me up not to be a racist. So it's actually your fault.
So just what's the lesson here?
Well, I think it's an early warning that perhaps, and we don't have the data to know, perhaps opinions are starting to harden. And if the first 10 or 15 years after 94 heralded a coming together of people, I think we're seeing a hardening of a white and a black nationalism on both sides of the debate, and people are starting to drift apart.
Ons vir jou sê